Hi, welcome to D10tion, where we pretend to know what we're talking about when it comes to D&D. I am your host, Half-Life Tristan. To my left, we have Half and Half Sam, and to my right, we have Half Price Brandon.
Oh, man.
Brandon is on sale. You can find him at our merch store.
No, wait, no!
So with all the talk of halving here, that's what we're going to talk about today. Today we are continuing our delve into the different races of D&D, and this time we're going to talk about the two half races that are in the player's handbook, the Half Elves and the Half Orcs. So, we're going to start with Half Elves.
Woo!
Yay, Half Elves! Now, they're pretty much exactly the way they sound. They're half human, half elf.
A real strange concept.
I know, right? Who's ever thought that was going to be the outcome? Now, as always, as we delve into the different races of D&D, we're going to kind of talk about a little bit about their history, not too much, because a lot of these races have a lot of history. We're going to talk about like their stats and stuff and bonuses that they can also get. So, let's go ahead and kick off Half Elves.
They are, as said, half and half, but they're not, like, some people think, oh, half and half, they're the bad halves. No, Half Elves are the best halves of being an elf and a human. Mm-hmm. The poise and grace of being an elf, and a little bit of longevity, curiosity, and the adventurousness and the ingenuity of a human. Smack them together, and what do you got? Half Elves. Really utilitarian race that can be doing, like, does a lot of things in the D&D universe, and they are everywhere because it's not hard to find an elf and a human that are like, we like each other. There you go.
Right. This is one of those definite things, though, however, because of their half features, they tend to not really belong to one or the other, like their own different worlds. This is where you'll see that, like, elves think they look like humans think they look like elves, and half-elves are just sad in the middle.
But it doesn't really, most half-elves doesn't let them get them down.
No.
Because, like I said, that adventurous spirit means more often than not, a half-elf is going to go out into that world and is going to just explore it to the fullest.
Right. I mean, because even just as far as the way they look, they still tend to be about from 5 to 6 feet tall. They can range in weight as far as like 100 to 200 pounds. I mean, they're still relatively in the same. Men tend to be slightly taller and heavier than women, but not by much. Half-elf men can grow facial hair and sometimes grow beards to mask their elven ancestry.
Shock.
But again, mostly to try and fit in. But like it really depends. You can go either direction, more into your elf or more into your human features. They, like you said, they just tend to take both of the
whatever
parts.
The prettiest parts of both parents, you get to pick which ones you want.
Right, and this is where you can lean into like, oh, well, I'm more elf-like, so I have more elf-ish ears, or you can do like the more almost like Spock ears if you prefer those versus like the large triangular ears. But they tend to have their eyes of their elven parents, though. So their eye colors tend to be much more of that. Because my guess is just because they're very much more dominant feature.
Yes, genetically speaking, if you want to get scientific, yes, the elf would be the dominant feature.
So because of this, like you said, with the adventure spirit and everything, they tend to kind of lean towards a couple of different,
avenues.
Because they don't really fit into either the human or the elf society, they tend to sort of venture out and journey and wander around. They're certainly welcome in both the human and elf areas, but they don't really fit in. They're a little too restless to just hang out with elves, and otherwise with humans, they have to basically watch them die. Mm-hmm. So they tend to journey out, or they tend to use their charisma to kind of become diplomats for, either elves or humans or interactions between the two.
The nice meet in the middle.
Yeah. So now when it comes to, like, even something as simple as names, you're talking about you can really go either or. And this is kind of where if you can't pick between either, like, doing something like human or elves, this is that great compromise because you could lean either direction. They just don't really fit, so they can choose either a combination of like elven and English name or common names. It's really just a toss up in the air when it comes to something as simple as names.
I'm Billy, or I am Gilgaria.
Either
work.
I'm Bilgar.
I'm Bilgar.
You can call me Billy. Now, so let's start talking about kind of like the basic standard feats of half elves.
Being a half elf, because with elves, so a lot of different ones. So we're just gonna look at the main basic one right now.
So standard half-elf traits. You get a +2 to your charisma, and then you also get 2 other ability score improvements of 1, which they take from their parents of human nature, because as a human you get a +1 to like everything.
Whereas like elves tend to be very much more charismatic.
Or dexterous.
And dexterous. So you literally get the best of both worlds in this. So a lot of people, when they see those, they go, "Oh, I can be a pretty paladin, or I can be a sorcerer, or I can be a pretty," and then use the other 2 to make it a fighter.
Right.
As far as age goes, elves mature at the same rate as humans do, and they reach adulthood about 20, kind of like humans. But they live much longer. This is where that elven ancestry definitely comes in. They exceed over like 200 years in a lot of cases.
They'll most likely outlive one of their parents, but not the other one.
Right.
Which
Kind
is
of sad.
It's kind of sad for the elf parent.
Well, I guess it just depends on how old the elf parent is.
That's true. More often than not.
If they have a 700-year-old dad.
As far as alignment goes, they tend to be a little bit more chaotic due to their elven heritage, but once again, you can kind of, be whatever you want, but they do tend to value sort of like that personal freedom and like that artistic expression and that kind of thing. They don't really like to follow rules or demands.
They just remind me of like a child that's just like, "You never understand me, Dad."
Or mom.
Or both, because I'm different.
You don't
I'm
get
different
me.
than everyone. I'm not like you.
Another half elf walks by. Hi, I'm different.
Yeah, me too, bro.
As far as size goes, they tend to be the same size as humans. Like we said, between 5 and 6 feet tall. Your height is medium. You're not like a...
You're not a large creature. You're definitely not a small creature.
No, you're just a dude. Or
You're
a gal.
you're whatever you want to be. And then your base speed is 30 feet. You're
Go figure.
an average.
Now, they definitely get something, get a couple of things from their
Elven heritage.
including dark vision, which, thanks to your elf blood, you have superior vision in the dark.
You can see in dim light up to 60 feet.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice.
You also have part of your Fey ancestry. You get advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and magic cannot put you to sleep.
Which is useful. Because a lot of people are like, go to sleep. And you're like, no.
Like, no, sorry, I'm a half-elf.
No.
And that's especially one of those things that definitely comes up. Like, if you're hiding your elven ancestry, he's like, "Oh, I got this big old beard and long hair." And you're like, "You're a dude, sleep." And he's like, "Ha ha, I am a half-elf." And you're like, "Ah, crap."
And then thanks to your human heritage, you get that skill versatility, so you get proficiency in 2 skills of your choice.
Which is so nice.
You can also get 3 languages, Common, Elvish, and an additional language.
You can speak to the 2 primary languages of most places.
Now, this is where we start talking about how there are different variants. When we talked about elves, we talked about a lot of different variants. Well, guess what? As a half-elf, you can be a half-elf of those different variants. And you'll get extra things based on those half-elf variants. So, like, for example, to start with, we have an aquatic half-elf.
You have... you cannot get the skill versatility from your human side, and you just swim. You get the swim speed, which is... great, because most races don't get an actual swim speed. They're very slow in the water, while you are a lot better.
Or there's the Drow half-elf, where instead of getting the skill versatility, you get Drow magic. So you can do the Dancing Lights cantrip, the Fairy Fire spell, and the Darkness spell at certain levels.
Right. Or the high half-elf, where you get rid of that and you get, a half-elf of the moon or sun or descent of some other versatile skill versatility instead of using the half-elf's weapon training or
you get a free cantrip. So if you don't want to be a spellcaster, you can forego the skill versatility to get yourself a free cantrip, or you can get trained in elven weaponry. So if you're going to do something that doesn't give you proficiency in certain weapons and you want them, there you go. Your class now can use a weapon that most people can't.
And that's very similar to the last one that we'll talk about, which is the wood half-elf, where you can do pretty much the exact same thing, but it's for the Wood Elf's version of everything.
Which is
the weapon training, Fleet of Foot, Mask of the Wild.
So it's really, really simple on how to figure out oh, this is a cool ability. There you go. You're half. You get that one thing. You don't get the skill versatility.
I don't know what the actual statistics are, and I could be wrong, but I feel like behind humans, I feel like half elves are probably the second most.
They're a human,
race.
but better.
Right. So I would probably agree that I'm pretty sure the statistics would agree with you that half elf is right up there. Because it's like you said, it's like we've talked about. Everything is so versatile as both the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Like I want to be an elf or a human. I can't pick. Well, I'll be half.
Well, wouldn't you know? They're selling for you.
So I mean, in general, half elves really are that way. If you're kind of varying between the two of them, you're like, okay, what can I do?
And there are different ways that, as a DM, you can use that half elf lineage to your advantage. So depending on how old the player wants to be, one parent is most likely going to be alive. The other one might not be alive, and you can use that as an interesting dynamic in the player's backstory and in the current game. Because most times when an adventuring party forms, they don't either know their parents or they've died or old age happens or something. And an elf, being an elf and very hard to kill through age, disease, and things like that, is most likely alive, so then you can actually give your player a parent to go back to.
Yeah. Or you could use social interactions, like maybe they got kicked out of like an elven area because they were a little too clumsy or a little too boisterous or a little too human.
Mm-hmm.
So that's two things. Another thing I'm thinking you can do with it is, have them in story, have them have to pick between the two.
Yeah.
Right.
So that would make the parties like watching this player and character find who they are and which side of their lineage do they go with. Their parents may still love them and like be fine, but then the overall community on both sides might not. So having the player pick, I want to be side with more humans or I want to side with more the elves, is a nice way to add a little bit of spice to the story and to the group, because then the group will know more about that character.
And also gives the player a chance to sort of use that diplomacy aspect of them, or that charismatic aspect of them, kind of play that up a little bit.
So it's really up to, as we were talking about, the diversity, the utility of being a half elf and what the entire world is open up to you, pretty much. Because not too many places are like, it's a human, kill it. It's an elf, kill it. Especially, it's a half elf, double kill it.
And if your DM's running a campaign like that, then why not pick one anyway? Because, you like danger.
Danger is your middle name, literally, because your parents did not care for your naming aspects.
No.
All right, so we've talked about half elves. So let's go into the other half race that is in the player's handbook, which is the half orc. Now, it should be noted that the orc is not in the player's handbook. It is available later on with other books. So this is kind of like a unique kind of thing.
The first step.
Yes. So half orcs are exactly like half elves as far as they're the half human, half other race. And in this case, it happens to be orc.
When an orc and a human love each other very much.
Yes, that's what causes them.
Karma, love Derek. I love you too, Karma. Look at our beautiful baby.
So now this is a little bit more different as far as half elves. I imagine are a bit more easy to be accepted by people because it's elves and humans.
Yes.
Orcs are not that so much.
Not so much.
Because this is something where, like, whether united under the leadership of a mighty warlock or, fighting till a standstill after so many years, orcs and humans have kind of just been stuck together, or they form an alliance, and then things just kind of happen. They're
Man
orcs.
meets orc. Orc meets man. Happens.
So
Classic love story.
yes. So you can probably guess what a half orc is going to be a bit more resembling of. They're going to have like the grayish pigmentation, sloping foreheads, jutting jaws, the prominent like orc teeth, not to the same extent, but
Muscles.
minor. They're going to be huge as far as compared to other humans and whatnot.
Yes, they are going to be bigger.
Yes,
on average.
We're talking about like a range of like 5 to 7 feet, and usually weighing like 200 to 250 pounds. They are orcs, like diet orc.
Diet orc. Yum.
So we're talking about orcs. They're going to be battle scars are tokens of pride, so they tend to be pretty scarred up for the most part.
They take more after the orc side of tradition.
Right.
While a half-elf can pick between following the elf tradition and the human traditions, half-orcs are more often than not pushed into the more orcish side of their lineage.
And that's typically because half-orcs tend to live among orcs. As far as the other races are concerned, like, humans are the most likely to accept them, but they typically live in the orc tribes as opposed to anywhere else.
And now that should be noted, that's kind of a nice thing to think, because you talk about like half elves, the elves might not totally accept them because they're only half elf. Orcs are like, you half orc, that cool.
You're in. Come on.
And he's like, you just is different.
Here's your sword. We're going.
Go fight. But like Sam mentioned, that humans tend to be, they understand things happen, and they're like, yeah, as long as you're cool.
You're
but
cool.
Because they tend to grow up in the tribes, they tend to work towards like physical might and endurance and determination, and so I think you do, as a DM, you kind of have to keep that dichotomy in mind as well, where if you have a player that's a half-orc that was raised by humans, they might not be that rough and tough.
Maybe compared to humans, yes. But let's say they run into another orc, they're like, no.
So if you have a player that's like, I want to be a half-orc wizard, a lot of people are going to be like, interesting. You have big muscles. And fireballs. I'm never going to make you mad.
Right. I mean, this is why most of the orcs you run into tend to be pretty barbarian-ish.
Fighter.
Yeah. But again, that really just comes down to how they grew up. And again, their situation, whether it is like two armies that are finally like, fine, let's stop fighting. We're not getting anywhere here. Or, as well, like a warlock, we're like, you must stop fighting and love each other now. It's like, okay, they might be a bit more to be intermingled and, and stuff like that. So this is where, of course, much like the other one, we're talking about, like, as far as even names go, they can kind of pick and choose. But again, with most of them being
in orc communities, you get an orc name.
Right. But like Sam said, it's kind of like where they grow up that matters most and that kind of thing.
My mom calls me Mark. My dad calls me Holg.
So as a half-orc, you get just as standard traits. You get a +2 to your strength and a +1 to your constitution. So you're already set to be sort of battle heavy.
Yeah. I mean,
don't let that force you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you could just be a really strong wizard.
I'm out of spell slots. Fine by me.
I mean, you can do countless things. So even if you're looking to dabble in it, but still kind of stick close to like a traditional orc, you could definitely do something like an Eldritch Knight fighter.
Or a monk.
Or a monk. I mean, just an orc. Odog smash! What? No. Ow! What the heck?
You punched me.
Age kind of works. They work more like orcs than they do humans. They age a little faster than humans, reaching adulthood about 14. They also age notably faster and rarely live longer than 75 years. So they tend to. It's much closer to like an orc span versus a human span.
Just by a little bit. They're close enough.
Yeah. As far as alignments go, half-orcs inherent tendency towards chaos.
Chaotic again. I mean, being pulled between two worlds kind of makes you chaotic in some sense.
Yes. They're not really strongly inclined towards good, but I think it's just more of... They're almost
Orcs.
Neutral. So it's like they're a barbarian tribe. Some people see it as evil. Some people will be like, oh, that's just them surviving.
That's just barbarian.
And of course, if they're living among orcs for their whole life, they will tend to sway towards the evil because a lot of orcs tend to sway towards the evil.
Mm-hmm.
Because take what you want, give nothing back. Your base walking speed, because you are 5'6" medium creature as normal for half people.
Yeah.
You get 30 feet. Just like everyone else.
Right, and even if you're, a 7 foot tall one, because they can grow.
They can grow big.
You're still medium. You're
still
gonna have the 30.
Yeah, you don't get an extra 5 foot because I'm 7'1". I'm a little bit taller.
And much like the half elves,
thanks to your orcish blood, you also have dark vision.
Yay, dark vision.
Yay, better than humans. It's dark. I can't see.
Yeah, so this is definitely where, as we continue down that line of more orc nice things, you want to tell us, Sam, what being a half orc gives you a bonus too.
Yeah, so you get menacing, which means that you gain proficiency in the intimidation skill. So
Because,
it's pretty nice if you're going to walk up on some guy and kind of muscle up.
Don't make me cast fireball
You could
on
be
you.
the bard, but you're still going to be an intimidating bard.
He's like a metalcore man.
You also get Restless Endurance, so when you're reduced to 0 hit points but not killed, you drop to 1 hit point instead. And you can only use that once per long rest, but I don't know how many times I wish I had that ability.
It's very useful.
Yeah.
I guess that continues on with savage attacks. More orkiness. This is where you score a critical hit with a melee weapon. You can roll one of your weapon's damage die one additional time, and add it to the extra damage on a critical hit.
So you get more damage.
More damage. And then the languages, Common and Orc, and vis-a-vis through Orc, you know how to read Dwarvish, because Orc just uses the script of Dwarvish. So that's very important.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the gist of like Half-Orc. There are other very, very, very sub Half-Orc things, and those are based on if you're doing a campaign in a campaign setting.
Right.
They're like the marks in the houses, which are very, very niche.
Right.
So they're not really something to talk about. You can look into that if you're playing something that involves those things.
Right. A lot of, at least with the Half-Orcs as compared to the Half Elves, we're talking about a lot of it comes down to story for a Half-Orc. Are you more of a barbarian-esque one because you grew up in a tribe, or are you more civilized because you grew up with the human side of you? Or are you somewhere in the middle because you live in a society that has both?
Yeah.
You're I gotta go take care of my grandmother, but also kill the enemies that invade our land.
Yeah, when you
I'm
gotta
on my
take care
way.
of grandma at 8, but slaughter a tribe at 9.
Yeah, so
Priorities.
Half-Orcs are definitely as different as far as the Half-Elves. As far as like Half-Elves is a great of both worlds. You're gonna be much more accepted everywhere you go.
You're
more
right about
like,
here in the middle.
Whereas Half-Orcs are like if you're looking to push the line a bit, like maybe you don't want to go like tiefling hated wise, but
Womp womp.
well, because as we've talked about in tieflings, we talk about how they're not always widely accepted. Orcs tend to be,
Why not?
or
They're
Half-Orcs are
wonderful
going to be a little more like
A little more accepted depending on where you go. If you go to like a fancy like aristocratic area, they're gonna be like, "Oh God, you're hideous," and then or
like you're going to be the the charismaticest
Yeah.
orc you dead and deal saw.
Or, if you want, you can just have a really sad story where everybody hates you.
which is a valid story if you want
Yes.
to do.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it a lot of it just comes down to how you want to play. Yeah, so Half-Orcs are definitely different as far as that regard to Half-Elf. It's almost the two extremes. Accepted, probably kind of like, depending on where you go.
Well, that's
Yeah.
And those can swap very easily. You could have a party with a Half-Elf and a Half-Orc, and one place the Half-Orc's going to be they're gonna be like, hey, it's Urgabur! And you're like,
Hey,
Urgabur! And they're like, who's this Half-Elf guy? It's like, oh, he's stupid and we hate him.
I hate him. He's weird looking and short.
Look at those ears.
So now we've kind of talked about in the past what some of our favorite of these types of players
Right.
are. I don't currently have an active half-elf that I am playing or NPCing, but the first D&D character I ever made was a half-elf. It was a half-elf rogue. And I never really got to play her. It was a shame.
Yeah, because you had to DM
Because I had
first.
to DM.
Womp womp.
Yeah.
Well, there is a certain Half-Orc that we've interacted with.
He's my favorite half-orc.
I think he is one of my favorite half-orcs, but he's tied with a half-orc I've made.
Oh God. Well, the one they're referring to is Marshall, the half-orc leader of the former White Talon, now affiliated with the Postman, who is a friend of the group.
He's
Totally-
a friend. He's
totally
a good guy.
friend. He's a good guy.
10 out of 10. Can vouch.
He's a person, all right.
Cal vouches for him. He's got Cal's seal of approval.
And Cal's never wrong.
Cal's never wrong. Always right. Never made a bad deal in her life.
On that note,
So I think the only half elf or half orcs that I've made have been for the one shot that I worked on for the wrestling one shot that I've been working on that I haven't done anything with. I think I had a half elf druid that was based off of WWE wrestler Sheamus because he was the Celtic warrior, so he's a bit more of the the nature-y, but he was this big old buff half elf.
Gotcha.
And I have a half orc named Asia, who is based off of WWE Hall of Famer China.
Dun, dun.
So she was a big half orc female who was just like, I wrestle everyone, just throwing people and whatnot.
Yay.
I think my favorite half-orc is the one that I made for my campaign, who's an NPC, Rupert, who is more of the, kind of raised more in the human side of things, so he's a bit more, like, not murdery.
That's where to put that.
And he's a monk, so he's kind of, like, tries to be more serene. But he is all about that fitness, man.
Yeah. I love him.
So that's pretty much the half races that are in the player's handbook. You might see some homebrew ones of like half other ones, but
Half Tabaxi, half Goblin, half Triton. Literally anything that's a standalone race, you can
Half
it.
Bugbear.
half bugbear.
Dun
I
dun
made
dun.
But yeah, so these are the two that are in the player's handbook that are official, first and foremost, and are definitely easy to kind of pick up and go with. This is definitely one of those things if you're looking to push some certain boundaries or don't want to fully commit to one or the other. If you're like, I like elves, but I don't want to go full elf, half elves are a great option. If you're like, I want to play an orc, but that might be a bit much for this party I'm in, half orc. But again, a lot of it comes down to how you play these characters. Because you don't have to play a half orc to be the big Brutus. You can make them a warlock magic based person. Or you don't have to play a half elf more diplomatic. You could be a wandering.
You could be either.
If I played a half elf right now, that would probably make them very clumsy and like play up that lack of dexterity that they have.
Which would be hilarious.
Yeah.
Roll me acrobatics. Oh no.
Dex would be my low stat, which would be awful.
You'd have to wear heavy armor.
I would probably make them a wizard.
That
High
also
intelligence, high wisdom, but low dex.
works. We need you to hop over this 5 foot area.
Can someone carry me?
So as always, when we talk about these, everything comes down to how you play. So definitely if you choose either a half elf or a half orc, make it what you will, and make it your own. Definitely don't be afraid to play stereotypes. Don't be afraid to go the opposite direction. It really just comes down to you, and these are just, as we always talk about these races, they're just kind of information to help you kind of guide you in your way as far as that goes. So until we see you guys next time, D10tion dismissed.